Posadimo tim velikani, dali meču, moje kru naši ideali. Moj narod pati, zato moj narod pamti, moj narod naši ideali.
Hey everyone, welcome back to Macedonian Puzzle. Today I'm thrilled to kick off a new series on the channel where we'll be diving deep into Macedonian history through the pages of some incredible books. And what better way to start than with Will Myer's captivating work, People of the Storm God Travels in Macedonia. People of the Storm God invites us into the tumultuous world of Macedonia, a region so historically significant that even a fruit salad bears its name. Myer embarks on a journey in the autumn of 1994 and the following spring, aiming to unravel the political and human reality of a land plagued by conflict and controversy. But before we delve into the heart of the book, let's take a moment to appreciate the backstory. From the foreword of the book, we learn that Will Myer first started traveling in the Balkans when he was 15, in the summer of 1984, when his father introduced him to this area, and he got fascinated by the religions, politics, psychology, sociology, geography, and history of the area. Will wrote the book following two separate visits to Bulgaria in 1994 and Macedonia in 1995. Unfortunately, he passed away before the book could be published, leaving behind a manuscript that seemed lost to time. Here's how the writer of the foreword, Shawnee Myer, tells the story of how the book was published after Will's passing. After Will's death, I searched high and low for the letters he had sent me from his travels, but with no success. I also was unable to find a copy, either physical or electronic, of the manuscript that I knew he had completed. I spoke of the search and my sadness with our friends, and one of them said that she believed that she had the original manuscript, and in 2002 she sent me the copy that she had saved. It was the only one in existence. Will's aim in writing the book was to discover what creates identity in one of Europe's melting pots, and to share his knowledge and experience of the Balkans. It also includes some of the history of Macedonia, politics, religion, ethnicity, and nationalism. Even though almost a decade has passed since Will's writing of this book, his analysis of Macedonia and Macedonians still holds. From Orthodox weddings and Easter parades, widows and witches, dervishes and mystics, through to political rallies and drunk evenings with shady characters, Will paints a beautifully vivid picture of this rich, complex land and its people. As we delve deeper into People of the Storm God, let's first explore the gripping prologue titled The Macedonian Question. This introductory section sets the stage for the complex historical backdrop against which the narrative unfolds. Macedonia is a problem. It is such a problem that the French named fruit salad after it, begins Will Myer, plunging us into the heart of the matter. He paints a vivid picture of a region embroiled in conflict, where the very definition of Macedonia is fiercely contested. 4 wars have been fought over it in the last 80 years, each bloodier than the previous one. They were fought to determine not only where exactly Macedonia is, but who lives there and what in state they should live. Depending on with which neighboring country you talk to, Macedonia is either South Serbia, Southwest Bulgaria, or Northern Greece, or it is none of these, but simply Macedonia, revealing the deep-seated political and nationalistic tensions that have plagued the region for centuries. Myer guides us through a rapid exploration of Macedonia's turbulent past, spanning from the Byzantine Empire to the Ottoman era and beyond. Subsequently, the area was swamped by Slavs and invaded by a Central Asian tribe, the Bulgars, who themselves became absorbed by the Slavs. It was then partially re-Hellenized and repeatedly taken and lost again as Bulgaria and Byzantium battled for supremacy in the Balkans. It was not long before Latin control became as shaky as Byzantine had been, allowing the Serbs to move into the vacuum, only to fall out among themselves and allow another Central Asian tribe, the Ottomans, to sweep in. Through Myer's lens, we witness the constant struggle for dominance as empires rise and fall, leaving behind a patchwork of cultures and peoples vying for control. The prologue also delves into the modern-day political quagmire surrounding Macedonia. Greece, Serbia, and Bulgaria each stake their claim to the region, denying the very existence of a distinct Macedonian identity. Greece, Serbia, and Bulgaria are agreed. There is no such thing as Macedonian. Greece might, just might, grudgingly admit that there could be such a thing as a Slavophone Greek, while asserting that Macedonia is Greece and Greece only. Anywhere that is not Greece is ipso facto not Macedonia and has no right to use the name. Hence, when in 1992 a part of the former Yugoslavia declared independence under the name of Macedonia, Greece immediately imposed an economic blockade and vetoed any moves by the European community to recognize the new state. In February 1991, London's The Independent observed that Greece had described as preposterous, senseless, and utterly unacceptable a report to the U.S. State Department that noted the existence of a Slavic population in Greece, which it referred to as Macedonian. To admit the existence of a separate Macedonian people would be tantamount to recognizing the possibility of a separate Macedonian state. Bulgaria argued that the majority of the inhabitants of Macedonia were Slavs, and that these Slavs were, without exception, Bulgarians, much to the amusement of Serbia and Greece, who agreed that in the event of there being any Slavs which Greece denied, then they were Serbs. All of these claims to Macedonia were inspired by medieval history. As the historian Stavrianos pointed out in 1958, the past, even the very distant past and the present, are side by side in the Balkans. Governments and peoples, particularly intellectuals, have based their actions on what happened, or what they believe to have happened, centuries ago. The reason is that during almost 500 years of Turkish rule, the Balkan peoples had no history, time stood still for them. Consequently, when they won their independence in the 19th century, their point of reference was to the pre-Turkish period, to the medieval period, or beyond. Peaceful inter-Balkan relations were scarcely likely in the face of simultaneous attempts to revive the medieval Greek, Bulgarian, and Serbian empires. Things finally came to a head in 1912, during the First Balkan War. While Bulgaria was fighting the Turks in Thrace and coming within an inch of taking the city of Adrian, Greece and Serbia quietly carved up Macedonia between them. Inevitably, Bulgaria, finding herself cheated of what she considered to be rightfully hers, rounded on her former allies in the Second Balkan War of 1913 and made further attempts at gaining the territory in 1915 and 1941, to no avail. Greece took the lion's share, about half the total area, known as Aegean Macedonia, and promptly expelled as many Slavs and Muslims as it could lay its hands on, replacing them with refugees from Asia Minor and Bulgaria. Serbia gained most of the rest, Vardar Macedonia, named for the river that flows through it, and began to enforce the use of Serbian, much to the chagrin of the natives, whilst Bulgaria had in 1878 that rump of the land it had originally conquered in 1878 and then log again, and a massive complex concerning its irredenta, the unredeemed ones. Not that the Macedonian Slavs necessarily saw themselves unredeemed. The Greek novelist Stratus Miravilis, who fought in Macedonia during the First World War, noted of the peasants, "They hate the Serbs, who treat them like Bulgars, tyrannizing them. They hate the Bulgarians because they have conscripted their children into the army. As for us Greeks, they accept us with a certain sympathetic curiosity on account of one and only one fact. Our status, a genuine spiritual vassals of Patrick, that is, the ecumenical patriarch. This makes us privileged in their sight. Nevertheless, they want to be neither Bulgar, Serb, nor Greek. In the 19th century, the traditional manner of defining people by religion merged with the newfangled European system dependent on language, and ethnographers began to draw maps based variously on religion and language aimed at proving that the inhabitants of Macedonia belonged to the particular ethnic group of the cartographer. They colored in these maps using a different color for each ethnic group. Looking at such a map of Macedonia is a sure way of contracting a migraine. Myer masterfully navigates the complexities of this geopolitical chessboard, shedding light on the power struggles and rivalries that continue to shape Macedonia's fate. Despite the passage of time, the prologue reminds us that Macedonia's history is far from settled. With the collapse of Yugoslavia, old tensions have resurfaced, threatening to plunge the region into yet another bloody conflict. Myer's sense of urgency to document these events before it's too late underscores the ongoing relevance of Macedonia's story. So why bother with Macedonia? Why not simply write it off as impossibly Balkan, a word which seems to have supplanted Byzantine as meaning impossible to understand and not really worth the effort? perhaps because this forgotten corner of Europe has affected world history to an almost unrivaled extent. The most famous Macedonian of them all, Alexander the Great, built one of the largest empires ever known. Cleopatra was descended from one of his generals, Ptolemy. While in Central Asia, Alexander is still regarded as an ideal king, and villagers in remote corners of Afghanistan, Pakistan, and northwestern India name their son Sikander after him. More than one Byzantine emperor was born in Macedonia, and it was two local brothers known to history as Cyril and Methodios, born in Thessaloniki, who brought the Orthodox faith and a new system of writing to the Slavs, though the alphabet that bears the name of one of them, Cyrillic, was devised by their followers. As we embark on this journey with Myer, we're reminded that history is not just a thing of the past. It's a living, breathing force that continues to shape our world today. The rest of the book is composed of two chapters. Chapter 1, Pirin Macedonia, and Chapter 2, Vardar Macedonia. As the author ventures deeper into Pirin Macedonia, the journey unravels layers of history and cultural complexity. The rugged terrain and remote villages paint a vivid picture of a land suspended in time, where ancient traditions coexist with the modern world. Ahead loomed the massive bulk of the Pirin Mountains, their cloud-covered peaks bearing witness to their being home to the Thracian storm god Pirin. I had at last arrived in what seemed an almost legendary country, Macedonia. The encounter with Boris in Bansko, a native Macedonian, provides a glimpse into the intricate tapestry of identities woven across the region. Boris embodies the resilience and adaptability of the Macedonian spirit, reflecting on the fluidity of citizenship, ethnicity, and religion. His perspective challenges conventional notions of nationality and belonging, echoing the enduring quest for unity amidst diversity in Macedonia. Look, in a place like Macedonia, you have to be tolerant. Otherwise, nobody would be able to live here. Look what happened in the past. I'm a native Macedonian, but that's not important. Who cares that I'm Macedonian and you are English? We are both people, and that's what counts. The name-changing idea was stupid. This idea that to be a Bulgarian citizen, you have to be Bulgarian. I like the American idea. You talk about Irish Americans and Italian Americans. Just because you are Irish or Italian doesn't make you any less American. It's the same with your country, Great Britain. You are lucky that it's named after a place, not a people, so anyone who lives in that place can belong to it, regardless of race or religion. That's like Macedonia. It hasn't always been true here, though, has it? I interposed. You yourself said that you were ethnically Macedonian, not Bulgarian. Boris thought for a moment, wringing his forehead. Well, of course I am Bulgarian, but that's just my citizenship. I actually said I'm a Macedonian Slav. That doesn't mean Greeks and Turks aren't also Macedonians. Of course they are if they live here. The vibrant folk music and convivial atmosphere of Bansko reveal a community bound by shared heritage and shared experiences. Despite the tumultuous history of the region, the warmth and hospitality of the people shine through, transcending linguistic and cultural barriers. As the night draws to a close, and the author navigates the labyrinthine streets of Bansko, the majestic beauty of the Pirin Mountains serves as a poignant reminder of Macedonia's enduring spirit. Against the backdrop of a star-studded sky, the author reflects on the timeless allure of this enigmatic land, where history and mythology converge in a symphony of culture and heritage. In the heart of Pirin Macedonia, amidst the rugged beauty of the landscape and the warmth of its people, the author discovers a profound sense of connection to Macedonia's rich and storied past. As he drifts into the embrace of the night, under the watchful gaze of Orion and Taurus, he is reminded of the enduring legacy of this ancient land and the enduring quest for understanding and unity in the face of adversity. Not far from Bansko, in the village of Kraisti, nestled among the tobacco frames, Will encountered a shepherd who shared his perspective on identity, reflecting on the complexity of ethnic labels in Bulgaria. He expressed his reluctance to identify as a Pomak, a term often used by Bulgarians to categorize Muslim communities in the country. Instead, he emphasized his self-identification simply as Muslim, highlighting the diverse cultural landscape of the region. while offering a vivid portrayal of the complex religious and cultural landscape in Pirin Macedonia and the broader region, particularly during the late Ottoman Empire period. The author explores the intersection of religion and nationalism, especially in the context of the Macedonian question. As the three rival Orthodox Balkan states, Greece, Bulgaria, and Serbia, began to inch closer to Macedonia, each sought to assert the authority of its church over the people living there. Membership of a particular church implying membership of the relevant nation, and thus serving as a possible basis for an irredenta. It was here that the Macedonian question raised its head. Who were the inhabitants of Macedonia, and to which state should they belong? Each of the three states, squatting like hyenas over the decaying corpse of the Ottoman Empire, was quite certain that Macedonia was an integral part of itself. Unfortunately for the propagandists, the actual inhabitants of Macedonia do not seem to have thought of themselves as anything much beyond Christian or Muslim, and showed a marked indifference concerning intellectual arguments as to which nation they belonged or to which church they should belong. As Stavrianos puts it in his The Balkans since 1453, the miserable peasants were torn this way and that, and retribution was sure to follow whichever decision they made. If they declared for the exorcists, they could expect a visit from the Greek bands. If they remained under the Patriarchate, they were hounded by the Bulgars as traitors. Not surprisingly, a person's ethnic and religious identity, the two being seen as essentially the same, tended to vary according to who was doing the asking. It was not uncommon for a family to have a member in each camp, for an individual to pass through several phases of religion-national orientation, for a village to switch sides at random, and for these changes to be coerced. The author's journey continues in Petric, where he engaged in a conversation with Mihail and Petko, two young locals deeply entrenched in their Macedonian heritage. Mihail, a self-proclaimed mix of Macedonian and Bulgarian descent, exemplifies the nuanced identity politics of the region. I should say that I'm about half Macedonian and half Bulgarian. I feel both equally. We were joined by his friend Pete, also in his 20s. I'm whole Macedonian, not Bulgarian. Never mind what that idiot says. VMRO is very popular here. All the young people support them. The ambivalence over whether the original VMRO was pro-Bulgarian or for a Macedonia separate from Bulgaria lives on, with different organizations in both Macedonia and Bulgaria pushing the different agendas and both utilizing the VMRO name and heritage. Petko continued, "We are rediscovering our heritage after the communists suppressed it. The only thing we have in common with Bulgarians is that our language is similar. All Macedonians are pleased that Vardar Macedonia is free of the Serbs now. One day we may be able to unite, and then we'll only have to worry about Aegean Macedonia. Things are very bad in Vardar Macedonia at the moment because of the Greek blockade. I don't know what's wrong with the Greeks. Sometimes I think that they are a bit bad. Europe should have recognized Macedonia when it recognized Croatia. Because they weren't recognized, the Macedonians can't trade, and they have nothing. We must help them. They've stopped playing that Bulgarian rubbish. Now we'll hear some real Macedonian music." Their conversation reflects the ongoing debate surrounding Macedonian heritage and its relation to Bulgarian history, complicated by political affiliations and cultural rediscovery. Irina, a young woman, adds another layer to the conversation, expressing her desire for unity among the Macedonian regions. "Of course I like the VMRO. Everyone does. Do you think that now that Vardar Macedonia is free, all three parts can be united in an independent state? Number the Greeks won't have it. I can imagine Vardar and Pirin Macedonia being joined, but not as an independent state. Sofia would never allow it." In the next chapter, the author visits the local museum to hear about the VMRO and the Linden Uprising from the keeper of the museum, who presents the Bulgarian view of history, downplaying the existence of the Macedonian people. In his journey through Pirin Macedonia, the author arrives at Gotse Delchev, a town with a rich but conflicted history. Named after the revolutionary Gotse Delchev, the presence of Delchev's statue symbolizes a historical narrative shaped by different ideologies. A tattered poster demanded Macedonia for the Macedonians above a map showing the area surrounded by three wolves, Beneath was a potted history of Macedonia since the turn of the century, written not in Bulgarian Cyrillic, but in the Macedonian Cyrillic used in Vardar Macedonia. Macedonia has been denied its historic destiny. It screamed, "Support for the United Macedonian Organization, Ilinden." It was formed in November 1989 under the name Independent Macedonian Organization to assertive existence of a separate Macedonian nation within Bulgaria. It had obviously now become more radical, demanding the enlargement of the Republic of Macedonia to include the Pirin and Aegean regions. Macedonian Review was scathing. Its inadequate, unrealistic political conclusions, ideas, and actions, as well as the language of nationalistic and ideological labeling, are the fruit of an alien national ideology adopted and inspired from abroad. The magazine ranted in 1992, using the paranoid language of the communist era. Macedonism refers to the vertical belief that Macedonian Slavs are distinct to Bulgarians, whilst alien national ideology meant idea of which we do not approve. Then Will brings up what is happening across the border in Greece, where Macedonians face challenges to their cultural identity and rights, echoing a broader struggle for recognition. The Slavic community which remained in Greece, the so-called Slavophone Greeks, the descendants of those who could not or would not join in the exchange of population in 1923. Despite being bound by the Treaty of Sèvres to guarantee educational rights and the use of Slavic for official purposes, it was not long before Slav language schools were being closed and icons being repainted with Greek texts. In 1926, the use of Slavic place names was prohibited. During the war, Aegean Macedonia was, with the exception of the key port of Thessaloniki, which went to the Germans, occupied by the Bulgarians, who immediately set about Bulgarizing the territory in a regime of remarkable brutality. Not surprisingly, after the war and a civil war in which many Slavs fought on the side of the communists, who at that time were advocating VMRO's old goal of a Balkan Federation, Greece felt it had enough of Slavs' altimeter. The use of Slavic personal names was prescribed, as was the public use of the Slavic language. The vast majority of Greek Slavs emigrated to Yugoslavia and to Australia, particularly to Melbourne, where they continued to engage in a war of words with the local Greek community. In the next chapters, the author visits few more cities in Pirin Macedonia, exploring the vibrant culture trough, the traditional music and dances, and occasionally passionate debates about identity and history. In one of the local taverns in Bansko, the author meets two locals, Ratko and Ivan, who passionately declare that there is no such thing as a Macedonian, insisting that all people from Macedonia are Bulgarians, explaining how political manipulation by Serbs and Greeks attempted to erase this identity. While in Melnik, Will mentions the roadside graffiti, Macedonia for the Macedonians, and brings back the topic of the Macedonian separatism in Bulgaria. The previous month, in October 1994, the illegal nationalist group United Macedonian Organization, Linden, whose posters I had seen in the town of Gusdelchev, had distributed leaflets at the Pirin Folklore Festival in Sandanski demanding the annexation of Pirin by Vardar Macedonia and calling the Bulgarian army one of occupation. The group was founded by a man called Solunsky, the Thessalonian. From time to time, the organization attempts to hold rallies at Sandanski's grave, where they are almost invariably assaulted, or so they claim, by the police. Every so often, Omo Linden gathers at the Rojan Monastery to demonstrate the separateness of the Macedonian people. It is not so much the monastery itself which excites these pilgrims as the village church, outside which the body of Jane Sandansky lies under an enormous marble slab. Towards the end of the first part of the book, in which the author travels trough Pirin Macedonia, Will recounts his experience when he was advised to sleep with sugar under his pillow, so Baba Vanga can use the sugar to read the past, the present, and the future. Vanga is not just a phenomenon, she is a super phenomenon, I was told by the locals. Her predictions always come true. You must go and see her. She speaks to foreigners all the time. Vanga was born Vangelia Gusterova in 1911 in the town of Strumitsa in Vardar Macedonia, not far from where Basil II had had the eyes on Tsar Samuel's army put out in 1014. At the age of 12, she lost her sight, but in a vision of stranger on a white horse, who held a spear, she was granted the gift of clairvoyance. The last city the author visits and writes about from this part of Macedonia is Petric, just inside Bulgaria and an equal distance from both the Greek and Vardar Macedonian borders. Petric is the ideal heaven for criminals, and VMRO had by 1924 become nothing more than a criminal syndicate, amusing itself with random killing, internecine feuds, and plundering in 3 countries. It was also powerful enough utterly to destabilize Bulgarian politics. Even today, Bulgarian law hardly runs. The town is also the stronghold of the radical wing of Omo Elinden, which feeds of the local distaste for the laws of Sofia. In the bad old days just after the First World War, when the laws of Bulgaria came a poor second to those of VMRO, and in Petric life was cheap. So cheap, in fact, that a murder could be arranged for $10, which was then somewhat less than $3. When speaking to a local historian, the author asked about the Muslim population in the Pirin area and received an interesting answer. Can you tell me something about Islam in Macedonia? There are very few Muslims. There was a mosque in Melnik at one time, but not for long. There were never many Turks here, and Yane Sandanski took care of the few there were, as Sandanski had an especial dislike of Muslims. As far as he was concerned, anyone who lived in Macedonia was a Macedonian, provided there weren't Muslim. That is where he disagreed with Delchev. Of course, Delchev came from Aegean Macedonia, where almost half of the population was Muslim. The land there is much better than here, so more Turks settled there. The first part of the book ends with the author having a conversation with one of the locals who insists that there is no such thing as Macedonian nation. But I objected. I have been in many parts of Bulgaria, and although Macedonians always say, I am from Macedonia, nobody ever says, I am from Moesia or I am from Thrace, so there must be a difference between Macedonians from Pirin and other Bulgarians. Thank you for joining me as we explored the first part of People of the Storm God, Travels in Macedonia, diving into the rich and complex history of Pirin Macedonia and its inhabitants. I hope you found this journey as intriguing and thought-provoking as I did. In the next video, we'll continue this exploration trough, the second part of the book, turning our focus to Vardar Macedonia, uncovering more of the stories and events that shaped the region and its people.
За мојот народ никогаш да не го збориш во темен мотив.